losses, 3 of those without a goal. After a good start to the year, Inter Miami is in the midst of a free fall. Hello everybody, welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, the #1 weekly and bilingual Inter Miami focused podcast providing you with all the latest team news, analysis, opinions, inside information, general punditry, and much, much more. My name is Franco Panizo. I am one of your usual weekly co-hosts, and joining me is one of the other usual co-hosts, and that is Andrea Yanez, aka Ajicita, who is a much tanner Ajicita because she hit the beach earlier this week with her family and Jose, and, well, she got a little sun-kissed. So, Andrea, welcome to another episode of Miami Total Football Radio. How are you doing? Are you sunburned, or did you get it right and you're nicely tan?
No, I am burned. I am toasted. Typical Miami fashion. We don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it halfway. We don't know how to have moderation. So that is exactly what happened to me this week. But I am here. I am ready to roll. I am ready to talk about what is happening with this team, what we think, and what can we expect for this game in the future. We're gonna talk about it. And listen, I am more spicy because I am burnt. I am toasted. So let's get ready because we're gonna add a little bit of spice this week.
And el ají se está pelando o no? Is the pepper peeling? Yes or no? Not yet.
No, not yet. Maybe.
Do you expect
we'll
to peel?
We'll see Saturday.
Yeah, we will see Saturday. It's a home game for Inter Miami on Saturday, so you'll be in the press box, and we will see if you are indeed peeling by then. Like you mentioned, Andrea, we've got a good bit to talk about, as we normally do on this show, or on this week's show. We've got to talk about Inter Miami's most recent loss. Yes, yet another one. We've got to talk about this mala racha, this bad run of form, this losing streak that they're on, the continued attacking issues, Josef Martinez and his form, and of course we'll preview this weekend's game against FC Dallas and do the Q&A session and our final thoughts after that. So, Andrea, we've got a good bit to get to. We're doing the show a little bit later in the week just because of our schedules. So, you ready?
Let's do it. Let's roll.
All right. Let's get to it. All right, let's just jump right into it. So, Inter Miami suffers a 1-0 loss on the road to FC Cincinnati at TQL Stadium this past Saturday. The game-winning goal comes from Yerson Mosquera in first half stoppage time, 45+5. So it comes off of a corner kick from Inter Miami's left, FC Cincinnati's right, and it's to the near post. Mosquera clearly overmatching DeAndre Yedlin from a physical standpoint and a height and size standpoint, and he heads the ball to the near post past Drake Callender. That's all she wrote in this one, and we will dive into the game as we normally do, as well as some of the post-game remarks. This was Inter Miami's starting lineup in the match. Drake Callender in goal, back four, the usual suspects of DeAndre Yedlin, Serhii Christoph, Christopher McVey, and Franco Negri. The first line of the midfield was comprised of Bryce Duke, who replaced Victor Ulloa, and Jean Mota. Second line of the midfield, you had Robert Taylor on the right wing getting the start, Rodolfo Pizarro as the 10, Nicolas Stefanelli now out on the left, and up top you had Josef Martinez. So, a shutout defeat for Inter Miami. This again is their 4th straight loss. 3rd game out of those 4 in which the team has failed to find the back of the net. So Inter Miami has yet to score on the road this season, unless you want to count that Christopher McVey own goal against New York City FC. But of course, tongue-in-cheek, that does not count. So, Andrea, you watched the game. Your takeaways from yet another poor result for the Herons.
Well, I wanted to start talking about the lineup because the lineup surprised me. I'm gonna tell you why. With 2 players, because I expected Pizarro. We talked about this on the show last week, that Pizarro could play as a 10. He did, But I didn't expect Robert Taylor to come back from international duty where his team lost, where he had to travel, and then come back and play on Saturday. It really surprised me when you have Ariel Lassiter there available, who didn't travel with his national team, who trained with the team the whole week, and you didn't use him. So that was the first thing that surprised me with the lineup. And second of all, it surprised me that he continues to play Duke at that midfield position besides Jan Mota
Who is
replacing
he?
Gregory.
Say who he is, because we haven't mentioned his name yet.
Phil.
Phil who? We need the whole name. Give us the whole name.
Phil Neville keeps playing Bryce Duke in
There
that
we go.
position.
All right.
And
Nombre,
I
nombre y
don't think
apellido, Andrea. Nombre y apellido
Phil
queremos.
Neville, yes. Yes, Phil Neville keeps playing Bryce Duke in that position. And I don't think it works. It doesn't work for him. It doesn't work for the team. And I think it's been clear since the first time the team and the technical staff tried it. And listen, I am the first one, and we've argued this year on the podcast because I have defended Bryce Duke and said that he deserves a chance. But I think he's being cut off because, or like, not getting the right side or the right technical decisions by the coaches because he's being played in a position that is not his and he is not performing. He is not performing in that position. So it really surprised me when I saw the formation on that game on Saturday and Bryce Duke was in that central midfield position, in that 5 position, 6 position, however you say in Spanish or in English. So it really surprised me. And it surprised me that Robert Taylor was starting after the trip and Ariel Lassiter didn't get a chance.
So, Robert Taylor, he was back in training early in the week. So it wasn't like he lost a lot of the week. So I'm not, that one didn't surprise me too much. And it didn't bother me. Especially once, like I broke in the hours leading up to the game, quarantine Coco Jean. See, I said nombre y apellido, and then I don't do it myself. Quarantine Coco Jean, as I reported before the game, was out with an injury. So the first match that the Frenchman did not start in and did not play in. So he missed this one with an injury that the team is saying is day to day. Can we believe it's actually day to day? We've talked about this. We've talked about Inter Miami and its secrecy about injuries. Nonetheless, back to the original point, it didn't bother me. It didn't surprise me that Taylor was going to start. When Coco Jean's out, it was either going to be Taylor or Lassiter. Phil Neville went for the more technical player in Robert Taylor. So, don't have any real criticism towards that decision. Bryce Duke, listen, Phil Neville is hamstrung a little bit right now due to injuries and player availability. But Bryce Duke hasn't been impressing, like you said, at the 8 position. Clearly, he's not doing a very good job there. Pizarro, who's been playing out on the left, now back in the middle. Stefanelli was playing on the left of that second line of the midfield, but he wasn't playing on the wing. He was very, very tucked in, very narrow, taking up a lot of central positions, playing in the half spaces more often than not. So, is that his best position? Is that what's going to work for the team? I mean, I liked what I saw from Stefanelli when he was playing in Chicago, but when he was a little bit wider, a little bit further out on the outside, he had more space to take players on. I don't know if the tactics are at the absolute best right now in terms of what they're looking to do. Now, Phil Neville, and we'll talk about his comments in a little bit here, he thought it was their best game of the season and that they dominated it. And listen, possession without production is useless. And Inter Miami in this one did not generate a whole lot in the final third, despite having the ball for large stretches. And the attack continues to struggle. Josef Martinez continues to struggle. Listen, for me, stylistically, like if I had my preference, I would say yes, I would rather have a team that bosses possession than a team that does not prioritize possession. Right? This is just from a stylistic standpoint. I like a team that has the ball. If you have the ball, the other team can't hurt you. That's the way I view it, and that's my personal philosophy. But you have to do something with the ball. Can't just have the ball and pass it side to side and never get into the final third and create dangerous chances. And Inter Miami didn't really create dangerous chances. Their best opportunity in this game came from a long-range shot from Franco in the 65th minute, maybe, that he rips from distance.
Well, from a good play. Yeah.
He collects a lateral pass from, I don't know, 35 yards wide, out from goal, and he uncorks a hell of a shot, and it hits the crossbar and goes out. But that was their best chance, and that's una individualidad. That's just an individual play. It's not like combination passes. It's not a through ball in behind. It's just one player taking a shot from distance. It wasn't intricate passing that got him open or anything. It's just a shot from distance. So the team in general is not functioning well, especially when it comes to that final third. We'll talk about the defense and the game-winning goal. Did I think Inter Miami had a bad game? No, I don't think they had a bad game. I think a draw could have been, a fair result. But it wasn't a draw. They gave up a set-piece goal, and they lost because they can't score. They cannot create dangerous opportunities consistently. And that is a problem that they're having. I think Phil Neville needs to go back to the drawing board and simplify things. Look, if you're going to play a 4-2-3-1, get some wingers out there. Get some wingers that can give you something different because you might not have a whole lot of wingers, but get Ariel Lassiter back in there. I'm not saying he's going to be the hero. He's going to be don the Superman cape, but he'll help because he can stretch that back line. He can give you something different. We've talked about that midfield five that we've seen for much of this year and how similar they all are in terms of, what are their strengths. Exactly. Bryce Duke, Jean Mota, Rodolfo Pizarro, Nicola Stefanelli, up until recently has been Coco Jean. This game, Robert Taylor, who I thought was invisible for much of the match. If all these attackers are struggling to make an impact, then clearly something's not working. They're not clicking, but there's a bigger picture there. And it's not clicking because of something, right? Now, are they too similar? I think so. I think they're way too similar. They don't offer you a whole lot of variety in terms of the attack. Now, I think I get what Phil Neville's trying to do. He wants technical players in there that can combine and boss possession, and the idea is that they can progress the ball forward and then, turn that possession into chances. But we're not seeing that. That's not what's being translated onto the field. So, if that's not what's happening, you've got to switch it up. You've got to change it up. And just moving pieces around here. Again, Stefanelli, if you're going to play him out on the left, why have him so tucked in? So that Franco can provide the width? Okay, I get that. But then now again, you're putting players in positions that maybe they're not going to succeed in. Because Stefanelli's now not playing out on the wing where where he looked good against the Chicago Fire when he was out there on the left. He had more space to dribble at players. He looked more dangerous than he has at times. Pizarro as the 10 had some moments, but still not great.
The problem with Pizarro as a 10 is that teams, for example, Cincinnati in this case, knows that the ball is going to pass through Pizarro, so they mark him with 2 men, with 3 men, and he was always surrounded. That is why the foul that was called a penalty and after revised on the VAR, that is a perfect example because that is what you get. Because then your tactics become too predictable. So it was predictable that Pizarro was going to be the number 10 and the ball will have to pass through him. So he got 2-3 people on top of him, and Inter Miami lost. They couldn't pass that ball into the attacking third to Josef Martinez. As you say, Miami didn't have a lot of opportunities.
Just 3 shots on target.
They didn't create. So I don't think they deserved to lose, but I don't think they deserved to win.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. A draw would have been a fair result. A draw would have been a fair result. But listen, I harp on set pieces, not because I'm a huge lover of set pieces, but because they are very crucial in games like this. They can prove to be the difference.
They are an option, yes.
Absolutely.
But you need to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And Inter Miami, listen, through 6 games, has 1 set-piece goal, if I'm not mistaken. And that was in the first game from Serhii Kristoff. After that, once again, team is struggling to score from set pieces. Now, with regards to the attack, and we're going to focus in on Josef Martinez. But before we get there, with the attack, I think they've got to bring in Lassiter. I think Taylor on a wing. I know this game he wasn't great, but I think it's something that deserves another look, especially at home from the start. I think that's something you got to look at. Pizarro, I know you're defending him here, and I won't be overly critical, but how much of it is other teams double teaming him, and how much is it that he just holds onto the ball for way too long? And that's just part of who he is and his playing style.
Yeah, that's his
so.
playing style, and also like
But it's not necessarily the most effective way. It's not the most
Yeah.
effective way to play, especially if you're playing the 10. So, if he was more dynamic on the dribble, like if he was more explosive in terms of getting by defenders, if he could have like a quick burst or a quick acceleration,
or
okay. But
if
he doesn't have that.
another striker, if there was another striker that could get down and get the ball like Josef used to be in Atlanta, maybe it could work a little bit. But listen, that is not the moment that Josef is leaving. That is not the moment that Inter Miami is leaving. And they don't have Campana, so they don't have a lot of options. So for me, I agree with you, and I have told you this 1,000 times this season. Ariel Lassiter should get an opportunity to start, because Ariel Lassiter proved last year that he was a valuable asset for this team. And the moments that we saw Stefanelli with Lassiter, with Pizarro, and then when Pizarro came off with Bryce Duke in the game with Chicago, were in my personal opinion, the most I've liked the team in the playing style in this last couple of games. So I think that is a possibility. And listen to me, if you are on the verge of losing your 5th game, you need to change. Inter Miami cannot come on the game on Saturday offering the same thing, because it's clearly not working. So they need to change.
Now, what do you think, before we get to Josef Martinez, what do you think it says about Ariel Lassiter that I won't say he's deep down in the depth chart, but he's clearly not one of the preferred options, and maybe not even like the first choice option off the bench? What do you think that says about him?
I think it's because Phil wants a 9, and Ariel Lassiter is not a 9, and he doesn't.
But even on the wings, what do you think it says that he's not even right? Taylor got the look over Lassiter. What does that say? What do you think that says? I have my opinion on what I think it says, but what do you think it says?
I guess Phil doesn't like the way he's working, or doesn't trust him, or doesn't like him. He doesn't defend that much. I don't know. I personally don't see what Phil is looking at by not putting Ariel Lassiter in. My personal opinion.
So I think what it tells us is that Phil is very much, at least to this point, through 6 weeks of the regular season, prioritizing technique and technical players. Because Lassiter is not the most technical player. Is he explosive? Does he have some athleticism to him? Some size, some strength? Absolutely. But he's not the most technical. And I think Phil is prioritizing technique. And I get it. Listen, again, from a stylistic standpoint, I'd prefer to have a technical player in over an athletic player. But you do need to have somewhat of a balance. And if the players you have out there are none of them possesses some athleticism that can help unbalance the defense, and none of them are exceptional creative players, then I think you're very much limiting tactically what the team's going to be able to do out there. And I think that's what we're seeing. So
maybe you could be right.
Well, let's go to Josef Martinez, because now he's 6 weeks, but 5 games, because he was away for international duty for one of these games. But 5 matches with Inter Miami in the pink and black, 0 goals. It's probably...
I'm just going to say, I told you so.
It's probably as bad as anyone could have expected. It's probably as bad as you and Jose had said during preseason, when I thought he was the number 1 option, that he would revive everything this season. Right now, the signs are not pointing towards that.
Even I didn't expect that it would be this bad, to tell you the truth.
It's gotten off to a very bad start, a terrible start.
Yes.
And this game for me, Andrea, rewatching it again and seeing his movements and his body language, paupérrimo.
It was bad.
Poor.
Listen,
poor.
People have criticized Pizarro in the past, and rightfully so in his times with Inter Miami in the past. But what Josef showed in that game versus Cincinnati was a thousand times worse than what we've seen Pizarro or Higuain in his
I
enojado days with the team, in
I
his
I
pissed
think
off days with
Pizarro.
Phil.
I think Pizarro is frustrating to a lot of people because he gets on the ball and he doesn't move it quickly
Pass.
and
Mhm. Mhm.
and so it's but he gets on the ball, right? So like it's
Mhm.
easier to see. Whereas with Josef, because he doesn't get the ball, you can say, oh, he started the service, this and that, this and like you don't see him as involved or as active,
Yeah.
so you don't get as frustrated. But from what I saw, again, pauperrimo, poor, very
Yeah.
poor. Did not
There is
see
no
did not
way
see
of
him.
defending him. I
Did,
had defended him like 3 podcasts ago because I thought he needs more time. But listen, he went with the national team. I guess he felt more comfortable with the way they played. I said it in the podcast after that match where he scored. Maybe he feels more comfortable with the way that the national team plays. Maybe he doesn't like the style. And listen, it's at this point it's his responsibility, but it's also up to the coach. Phil needs to make a decision if he's going to keep him as his number 9, as his starting number 9. It is obvious that it is not working in this formation. He
so
needs to make a decision if to keep trying with another formation or to sit him,
well,
because
I've said that for weeks now. I've said
his
that for a few
job
weeks.
is on the line, Franco. For me, his job is on the line. If Phil loses on Saturday, it's beginning to feel like these results are sacatécnico for me.
So I don't know if we can get that far yet, just because I don't think Inter Miami will make that type of change at this point in the
The
season.
record is six
Six, right?
losses in a row.
The franchise record for consecutive losses in a row is 6. Back in 2021, when Phil Neville was in his first season as head coach. Right now they're at 4 straight losses, so they're 2 losses away from tying that ugly mark. But I don't think that Phil's on the hot seat just yet. Maybe I don't. I'm not saying he shouldn't be. I just don't think that he is. I don't think that he is. But going back to Josef Martinez and just his lack of fight, his lack of intensity that I saw against FC Cincinnati. Like I'm surprised Phil Neville didn't pull him. And I get it. Like Phil Neville, this is
And
Phil
he
Neville's
played,
gamble.
yeah.
This is Phil Neville's gamble,
Yeah.
right? Like from my all accounts, Phil Neville's the one that wanted Josef Martinez in this Inter Miami team this season,
He said it.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, so I
They
get
both
it.
said it.
But when it's clear that he's not delivering,
Yes.
you've got
He needs to make a decision.
and
That is why
listen,
tell
I
you.
get it. I get he's trying to manage probably personality. He doesn't want to, sink his confidence, Josef Martinez's confidence. But if he's not producing, you got to make that decision. Unless you want to live by the sword and die by the sword, you've got to
Exactly.
you've
That
got to
is
make
why
a
I'm
decision.
saying.
But I think he has a
on
lot more time. I
Saturday.
think he's got a lot more time. A lot more time. Especially, with the injuries, like Inter Miami will see that and even though publicly they've said, oh, those aren't excuses, which I absolutely think they're not excuses, because I think in el escasez, in when you're in short supply as a coach, I think that's when you really show your worth and whether you are a good coach. If you can make gold out of crap, and I'm not saying Inter Miami's crap.
But they're missing Gregory, they're missing Campana. So what you mean is that they're missing important pieces, and they have to make.
But there's not
make
like
with
it's
it.
not like this team.
And-
It's not like this team doesn't have talent still on the roster. Like this
Exactly.
team should be doing better than it is. That's why
They should.
maybe my comparison of gold to crap doesn't fit here, because I think Inter Miami, the team that they have, is capable of more. And I think Phil Neville's
Yes,
not getting it right, and hasn't found it.
I agree.
The right balance, the right connections, the right partnerships on the field. Now with Josef Martinez
Listen,
again, go back to Josef.
He had an idea with the diamond. Unfortunately, the diamond depended on a man that got injured before the first game, and that is Leonardo Campana. And after that, he chose another formation that at the beginning it worked. But when when you lost Gregory, it stopped working because Gregory is a very difficult player to replace. So they haven't replaced him. They haven't even replaced Campana. Now you get this when he changed the formation, he got another injury. So I don't think he thought that he needed to change the formation again. He didn't think that he needed to change tactics again. But in this point, I think he has had to realize after watching the video, after watching performances, after watching Josef, after watching all of that we have been talking, after watching another defender scoring, after watching another goal from a set piece, etc., etc. He has to think, and he has to obviously Phil has played football and grown as a coach in a European mentality. And Phil, I know he's thinking, oh my God, if I lose another game, my job may be in danger. I need to do something. I need to try something, because I don't think he likes losing. So I think this game against Dallas is a new beginning. It's his opportunity to show that he's willing to change. Because
He
as you
has to
said,
change. He has to change because
if
he's
he
banging his head against the
continues with
wall.
exactly, he cannot continue to keep doing the same thing, especially with the attack, especially with Josef Martinez. He needs to try another formation. He needs or to try another formation or to bench Josef Martinez and try something else. Um, look for options. Listen, look for options at this moment. If Campana is not 100% fit, the coach and the tactical team, they need to look for another option. Ariel Lassiter or Gacava, Borgelin, Stefanelli, Coco Jean. Well, Coco is now injured. He needs to try another thing because, listen, this game against Dallas is also going to be a difficult game. So they won't have it easy. They won't have it easy. And as I said, I think it's the moment to show that you can grab these men that you have in your order and make them believe that this team can start getting results again.
So back to Josef, because we have to round out the thought there. He had a chance in the 5th minute off of one of Inter Miami's best sequences in this game for me, where Franco Negri has the ball down the left flank near the midfield line, but out on the left. He plays a back pass to Christopher McVeigh. Negri then makes a darting run forward as McVeigh hits a pass into space, a heck of a through ball from the center back, into space behind the former Philadelphia Union, current FC Cincinnati right back, Ray Gaddis. Into the open space, Negri gets on the end of it, races towards goal on a diagonal run with the ball, and then plays a lateral pass to Josef Martinez, just inside the top of the box. Josef Martinez, you would expect to put that shot on frame. What does he do? He completely flubs the opportunity. The ball doesn't even go forward, I think. I think the ball bounced backwards towards Franco Negri just because of how poorly the timing was. And again, going back to what I said a bit ago, Phil Neville is banging his head against the wall with the tactics and with Josef Martinez up top as an end. I get it. You don't want to sink his confidence, especially a striker like the Venezuelan who is very
Ajicito.
No, there's a word. Who's very... It's going to come to me later. But who's very, of course, dependent on his confidence. Very dependent. And if you bench him, I can see that, I can see why Phil Neville doesn't want to do that. But if it's not happening, it's not happening. And it's not happening right now. And something that this might be a hot take, and some people might think it's exaggerating or not. But something that rubbed me the wrong way was on Wednesday, seeing Josef Martinez retweet a photo of him at some event, some party, with other Venezuelans, I guess, and all smiles and happy as can be. I don't know. It just, to me, it's like you're not doing your job well, but you're out, and you're a human being. You can go and enjoy your life. But to publicly post that and share that when you're not in your best moment on the field, I mean, maybe that's what he needs to try to raise his confidence stuff. But I don't know. It doesn't tell me that he's 100% focused on trying to get out of this rough moment. Maybe he's está de pasada here in Inter Miami, and he's just along for the ride. I don't know. That's what it comes off like to me. That's, again, and you could think that that's a hot take or not, but that's just how I perceive it. After a loss, right? Imagine directly after a loss, you see a player post a picture of himself just celebrating. It doesn't give me like great sensations. And again, that's just me. That's just my opinion. So I think I've said it for a few weeks now. I think it's time that you give him some time on the bench. Let him come off the bench. Maybe that role will suit him, and maybe that's what helps him find his rhythm and regain his confidence and his hunger. Because again, the overall, not just the performance, but the demeanor, the attitude that I saw, I didn't see a very competitive and very inspired Josef Martinez out there. And I get it. I know he's low on confidence, and Inter Miami as a whole is not playing well in the attack. But I think the big part of it is up top with that number 9. The ball, when it does get there, the few times it's getting there, is being wasted. I felt like Josef Martinez in this game was a black hole. Like, just plays went there to die. Like, it just was not working. A lot of like poor passes, and it just didn't work. So I think Borgelin's up. I think it's time, and I think Phil Neville, with what he said post game,
he needs to make the decision.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think post game, when Phil Neville says, today it was about putting the ball in the back of the net, and that's why we lost. And, that the attacking players have to do their part. They've invested a lot of money in the final third, and they have to deliver, and that he believes that they will score goals, etc., etc., etc. I think now the door has opened in Phil Neville's head for the idea to potentially bench Josef Martinez. I think it's now a more realistic possibility.
He should do it. I told you already. He should, or he saves his job, or he keeps going with the same thing, and that's gonna get him fired in the long run. Because if he continues with the same, the team is not going to win. The results, the answer is not that formation. That tactic is not the answer in this moment. With all the players that are injured and everything that you are missing, that is not the answer. So he needs to make that decision like he did last year with Gonzalo. Then he brought him back when he needed him. He needs to make that decision right now with Josef Martinez. And I think the game against Dallas is the game to make that decision.
Andrea, is Josef Martinez in the from what we saw a few weeks ago, is Josef Martinez in tip-top shape?
No, he's not. He's not 100%.
He does not look. He does not look physically like a professional footballer. He does not look like a professional player right now.
I don't think he's fat or anything like that. He's just like he's out of shape, out of form. I agree with you that he should be a little bit more committed. But listen, this is MLS. That is the problem, and that is something that Josef is missing. That pressure, that passion, maybe, is also missing for him to get serious and to get fully committed with this team. So that is another aspect that is not helping for his adaptation here in South Florida, because no one, he posts that picture, but other than us, who is talking about it?
Yeah,
no one.
I mean, but not everyone will see it like us. But I do agree. I'm with you that I think the lack of pressure, I don't know if I compare it to the South and Central America type of pressure, but I think the lack of pressure to perform and the nonchalantness that exists about, okay, whatever, they lost, no big deal. I don't think that that's necessarily bringing out the best Josef Martinez. Right? In Atlanta, he was playing in front of 50, 60,000 people,
exactly.
At the pinnacle of their peak so far as a franchise in the early years.
And listen,
there was pressure to deliver, deliver every single week, and that helped bring out the best of him.
Yeah, exactly. And when he fought with the coaches, he got coaches fired because the fans were behind him. He got the coaches fired. He got everything he wanted in Atlanta because people supported him and people put that pressure on the team, on the manager. Here, he doesn't have that. He got here and he saw how things are here. So he's not feeling that pressure from that side. He's not feeling the pressure from maybe a contractual side because he only has 1 year in his contract. He doesn't even have an option. So that pressure is not there for him. So the Josef that I saw with Venezuela and the Josef that I saw with Inter Miami are like two completely different players. And that is preoccupying because as a player, as a professional, you have to keep the same level every time you play. So hopefully for him, he gets better because we know what he is capable of doing. But Phil cannot wait for that to happen because If he waits, he is going to, in my opinion, lose his job. The team is going to keep losing, and the playoffs are going to get further and further away.
So,
Even though with the format, we expected Inter Miami to go to a players easily, but if they continue this run, they are going to pay in playoff time. They are going to pay it and not go to the playoffs. So they don't have in this moment they don't have the luxury to wait for a player to perform.
so,
That is my opinion.
Inter Miami's in 10th place now. So they're 1 point away from the 9th place spot, which is the last playoff position in the Eastern Conference. There's still a lot of games left to go. I don't share your opinion that if he keeps losing, that he'll get fired. I think Inter Miami will give him most of the season, especially mid-season when you've got to expect there will be at least one reinforcement of note brought in. I think, again, because of the players that are injured and the team missing some of the starting caliber players, I think that will, in the bigger analysis, be taken into account. So I don't think he's going anywhere, even if they tie this losing record in franchise history, or even if they surpass it. I don't see him getting let go like that. I think they'll give him much of the season, if not all of it, and then make a decision. Now, let's listen to something that Phil Neville said after this game, because he was pretty defiant after the game in terms of his thoughts on the match and how well he thought Inter Miami played. This is what he had to say, or part of what he had to say.
I thought we dominated the game. I thought we were the better team by far. We were always going to struggle. We were always going to struggle from set plays with the team that we had out against the team. But I thought my players played with so much courage, bravery, fight. I felt as if it was one of our best performances of the season. We deserved to get something out of the game. I thought we deserved to win the game. And we feel really, really disappointed to come away with no points.
Andrea, we both have said that we did not think a draw would have been an unfair result, right? Like, we both think that would have been okay, right? That would have been okay based on the balance of play. Cincinnati wasn't great either. But this goes back to what I said earlier. Possession without production does not make you a better team. Just because you have the ball and you can knock it around and look pretty doing it, doesn't make you the better team. You have to do something with that ball. The point of having the ball
is to score.
Exactly. Like, when you grow up as a kid, and this is why my philosophy and how I view the game is, like, I would like a team that has possession. Like, if I was a coach, I'd be like, all right, I want to have a possession-based team. But you have to do something with that possession. And the reason for that is because when you're a kid, you want the ball, right? You're playing with the ball in the backyard, or even if you're alone, you're with the ball. You're not playing without the ball. You're playing with the ball. So that is where you have the joy, the fun, you get your touches in. Like that is where I think you get your most satisfaction as a player. So I don't disagree with the idea to boss possession, but that has to produce. You have to progress the ball into the final third. Now, there's no true playmaker, and there's no true wingers, at least right now, that we've seen consistently. That has to change. The number 9, I think, has to change. I think a good bit has to change for Inter Miami. Because just having the ball and knocking it around, and it's something that, listen, I'm a fan of Peru's national team, and they have incredibly technical players that are fascinating to watch. And obviously, it's a bit of a higher level. But there's games where, for all the great technique, the way they can pass a hard ball out of the air on a one-time effort, like some of that stuff, like as a football fanatic, like it makes me salivate because, like, dang, that's not easy to do, and the abilities that they have to do that is impressive. But sometimes they have games where they just get stuck lateralizando, passing sideways and backwards way too much, and that's what's happened to Inter Miami in this game. They just passed the ball from side to side. Yes, they tried to get forward, but they didn't penetrate. They didn't get into that final third often enough and in threatening enough positions often enough. That has to change. If you have to give up a little bit of the prioritizing and possession to become a little bit more penetrating, to become a little bit more dynamic, to bring in a player like Ariel Lassiter, then I think that's what you've got to do. Because this game, again, has shown Inter Miami can knock the ball around.
It's not working.
That's okay. That's fine, and that's a good weapon to have because guess what? At some point, if Inter Miami's protecting a lead, keeping the ball is a good way to defend that lead. It's good. It's a good way to defend and protect that lead. Absolutely. But right now, in terms of finding the goal and finding scoring chances, it's not working. I don't know if you have anything to add there. Otherwise, we'll move forward.
Yeah, you said it. 100% agree with you.
Okay. So let's quickly touch on the goal that Inter Miami gave up. Dive into that, analyze that a little bit here. I know you're being critical of it. I'll be critical of it, but in a different way. I think.
Yeah, you look at it from the point of view that it's a set piece.
No.
That they are too small.
Well, yes. Well, that's true. There you go. You beat me. Yes. I mean, I think it's a byproduct of just one of Inter Miami's weaknesses, and that's that they don't have a whole lot of height. We said this during the game or after the podcast following the preseason finale against Austin FC, especially Jose and I, because Jose and I were in the press box that game. I believe you were down below shooting from the field. We noticed when Inter Miami came out for the pregame anthem, this team is not blessed with a whole lot of height. And the team that started on Saturday against FC Cincinnati was not blessed with a whole lot of height. I think the only two players you could consider tall in the starting field players, right? Not Drake Callender, but the starting field players, 10 of them, were Christopher McVeigh and Serhii Christoph, the two center backs.
Yeah.
Besides that, everyone else isn't blessed with a whole lot of height. I'm not blessed with a whole lot of height, so I'm not even like trying to be judgy or anything. But from just a sheer matchup standpoint, it's not going to go in their favor more often than not if you have these matchups, and that's what happened on the goal. Mosquera. How much bigger is Mosquera than DeAndre Yedlin?
Yes.
A lot bigger.
Almost a torso.
DeAndre Yedlin wasn't even DeAndre Yedlin wasn't even contesting that header. It was practically an open header.
And he tried to go for the ball.
So I'm not criticizing DeAndre Yedlin for not being tall, but I think this is a byproduct of Inter Miami just not having a whole lot of height. Something Phil Neville very briefly, but honestly, mentioned when I asked him post-game about the goal. Because he said something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing here, we were always going to have trouble, or we were always going to struggle with the set pieces. And that, to me, that's because he's alluding to the fact that this team is not very tall, generally speaking.
Yes.
So they got and they gave up a set piece goal as a result. Now, Josef Martinez could have done a little bit better there at the near post, but again, also another player that's not blessed with a whole lot of height. However,
that was not good playing by Josef Martinez either. So,
however, I was going to say this: one of the bright moments for me for Josef Martinez in this game was in the first half when he leaped to get a floated cross to the back post. I think it was from Robert Taylor. And he got over. He jumped up well for that one. And he got over FC Cincinnati center back Nick Hagland. And the header was poor. The header was, it lacked both precision and power. And it just kind of floated over the crossbar. But the way Josef Martinez exploded up into the air and was able to get that power underneath him to make that jump and get that vertical over a center back who's taller than him shows me that he still has that in him. On the set piece, he was, as the number 9, he's covering the near post because you don't want the number 9 defending and marking someone. You just want them at the near post to clear the ball if it's poorly hit. But he just didn't make a good read, didn't even make an effort to jump there, and it just wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. But I chalk it up to the lack of height overall, which is it's going to happen because this team just doesn't have the tall guys. It's like asking a team full of tall people to be super agile. Like it's just
super agile.
Right, it's
and sometimes with these teams that have a lot of players that are not tall, who usually are attacking players that are good, usually teams like that get the back 4 that are tall, that are like that. Inter Miami tried to do it because Christoph is tall, but they lost their tallest guy in Damian Lowe. So they have that disadvantage. Yedlin and Negri are not as tall, so the defense is lacking in height, as you said. But also they are lacking because whenever a set piece came, Campana and Gregory were also tasked with defending, and They are tall players. They are big bodies. not big as fat, but tall. And they were tasked with defending, with helping the team. So the defense looked better. That is why in the first two games they look better, and they don't have Campana coming down to help in set pieces with his big. I was going to
His
say
big frame.
big ass body.
His big frame. His big frame.
His big frame, exactly. To be polite.
Campana at the near post instead of Josef Martinez. And again, Campana wasn't healthy enough to be in uniform yet. Chances are that he should be in uniform on Saturday against FC Dallas. But Campana at the near post, I think he clears that. Or at least helps challenge for it.
He would. Yeah, he would at least put his body to try and get the ball, to try and desviarla, and to try to whatever. But Inter Miami, listen, as we have been talking, the injuries have crippled them. And I can't wait to talk about the game with Dallas, because I think a solution against Dallas, who has a very good attacking team, can be bringing, like Jose said last week, bringing another central defender, going back to that back five and bring a Sailor to add a little bit more height and to add a little bit more stability and more defensive power to the play. So
I'm not bothered by the defense though. I think the defense is doing okay. You give up one goal on the road, okay. I mean, against one of the top teams that ended up finishing the week as the top team in the Eastern Conference, I'm okay with that. And again, the goal came off a set piece in which Inter Miami, for me, is just outmatched physically, and there's not much really you can do about that except try to be smarter, because physically there's not much you can do. Yeah, look, and Inter Miami has 6 goals this season, so for me, 6 goals scored. For me, the issue is not at the back. I think that the back defense has its own weaknesses, and I mean, I'm not saying they're flawless, but to me, the problem's up front. That's where Inter Miami's biggest problems lie right now, in my opinion. Andrea, you said you wanted to talk about the FC Dallas game?
Biggest,
yes. Absolutely. So, Andrea, you said you want to talk about the FC Dallas game? It's time. Let's talk about the FC Dallas game. FC Dallas visits Inter Miami at Drive Pink Stadium in Fort Lauderdale, Florida on Saturday night. FC Dallas has a 2-win, 2-draw, 2-loss record. They're in 6th place in the Western Conference. They've scored 8 goals this season. They've given up 7. So they have a +1 goal differential for all you mathematicians. They're coming off a 1-1 draw at home against Portland. Prior to that, they lost 2-1 away to LAFC. And before that, they won at home 2-1 against Sporting Kansas City. So FC Dallas has been up and down this year. They do have some interesting players. Andrea, what do you expect from Inter Miami in this one? And what is the key to the game for the South Florida side?
The key for me is going to be the changes that Phil Neville does in attack.
Okay.
For me, if we see Josef Martinez again as the starting striker in this team, it's going to be a bumpy 90 minutes. If we see something different, I think Inter Miami will have that element of surprise against FC Dallas, and they could get the 3 points. But for me, if Josef starts, then we will see more of the same, more of missed opportunities, more of missed chances, more of the same that we've been seeing in the last 2 games. So for me, the key to the game is defend intelligently and change the lineup. Change the lineup. That is the key to the game for me. If you present the same thing that you've been presenting, Nico Esteves will already know he needs to double team, triple team Pizarro. He needs to kick a little bit to Stefanelli, and he will neutralize this team. So you need to change the lineup.
Last week I said my key to the game was that I thought Josef Martinez needed to score a goal. Because I didn't see Inter Miami holding Cincinnati to 0, and I didn't see Inter Miami walking out of there with something if they didn't score. Josef Martinez didn't score, they didn't score, and they came up with nothing. So yes, I'm patting myself on the back there. But I'm saying that because what I think the key to the game here is Phil Neville's, not the formation. I think the 4-2-3-1 is the way to go. That's just my opinion. But I think the key to the game, like you just mentioned, is the lineup selection. Is Phil Neville going to be testarudo? Is he going to be stubborn and continue on with the same thing, like you just mentioned, over and over and over again, despite the lack of results and the lack of performance levels being delivered? Because listen, if Josef Martinez isn't scoring, absolutely, like we've said on this pod, he deserves the criticism because he's the one out there playing. But if he's not performing and he's not producing, and Phil Neville continues to turn on him, at some point you got to point the finger at Phil Neville for continuously going to someone that's not showing you signs that he's going to find the back of the net. Now, I said this, I tweeted this after the loss on Saturday, this past Saturday. Inter Miami badly needs Leo Campana to get and stay healthy.
Yeah.
Because Josef Martinez is still a ways away from finding his, even close to a shell of the player he was. I was going to say his best version, but I don't think we're going to see that best version again. Might see flashes, but I don't think we'll see that best version again. Campana should be, good news for Inter Miami, should be in uniform on Saturday. So, I doubt he starts because he was not in uniform this past Saturday. So he's not going to be... Right, he's not going to be match fit.
That would be risky to start him.
Absolutely, he's not going to be match fit, and you don't want to risk him coming out, overdoing it, overloading him, and then he gets injured again. That would be the absolute worst thing that could happen. So I think you'll see him. I think he'll come off the bench. So who could come in? Because if I think the key to the game is the lineup selection.
Wow.
What are you wowing, Andrea? Why are you wowing?
We agree on something. Wow.
Okay. But listen, all right. So then we've got to say, what we think could work, right? Because if I'm gonna say that I think Phil Neville has got to get the lineup right, then we've got to throw out some suggestions for what we think. I think Schneider Borgelin up top as the 9 if they stay in this 4-2-3-1, which I expect them to. And I would say Ariel Lassiter on the right wing. I could see Pizarro getting dropped. I think I could see that. I don't think he's been playing poorly, but he's not doing enough in the final third either. He's not doing enough. He's got one assist. His only goal contribution this season is that assist that he got to Coco John in the first game of the season. That wasn't even an actual pass. And that's it. That's all he's contributed in the final third. Again, it's not on any one player, but the fact that Phil has pulled him early in back-to-back games, or earlier than others, I think that it's a possibility that he gets benched, definitely plays the 10, and you could have Robert Taylor on the left, or you could have Taylor on the right and Lassiter on the left. Either way, I think we could see Pizarro get benched. I don't think I would drop him, but I think we could see that. Victor Ulloa for Bryce Duke, I think, is another option.
Cantada. Cantada.
Well, I think
that is cantada.
Well, we'll see, because Victor Ulloa started the last home game. It didn't overly impress, so they went back to Bryce Duke against Cincinnati. So we'll see what Phil Neville does, but I do think Bryce Duke hasn't looked all that great, so I think Ulloa could come back in there. I think the back line stays the same. Those are the changes I could see. I definitely think they need a different number 9. Definitely need to bring on Lassiter to provide you a different look, and I think Bryce Duke needs to go back to the super sub role and bring in Victor Ulloa. I know Victor Ulloa is not flashy, he's not sexy in terms of what he provides on the field, but he can give you a better balance. I know he's not, maybe doesn't fit the technique and the possession that maybe Inter Miami's looking for, but you need to have a balance, and I think bringing him back in helps in that regard. I wouldn't drop Pizarro, but I could see that happening. I could see two.
I agree with you with some of the things that you say. I could see two options. Like I said, first, maybe he brings a third central defender, going back to the back 5.
I don't see that. I don't see him doing it, because I thought he would have done it in this game against Cincinnati, if at all. But I don't see it. Mm-hmm. You know why? Because he's become so attack-minded that I don't think he's going to go too far away from that. It would be like a 180. I guess it's possible. Anything's possible. But it would be such a drastic change. I just don't see it.
The need for a result for me could
at home
to bring back that back 5.
At home,
yeah. Though? Well, listen, he needs the result. I could see that, but the other option, I agree with you that I don't think Pizarro is getting dropped just because Corentin Jean is injured. We don't know if he will be available on Saturday, but I don't think he's dropping Pizarro just because of that. I think Ariel Lassiter is going to start on place for Josef Martinez, and we can see Robert Taylor starting again with Nicolas Stefanelli and Rodolfo Pizarro as a 10 again on the other side, and Robert Taylor on the other side, and Pizarro as a number 10. I see him drop. If he doesn't use a back five, I see him, and he keeps the same formation, I see him bringing in Victor Ulloa for Bryce Hook, and then bringing in Ariel Lassiter for Josef Martinez.
One more thing I'll say about what I think we could see. Again, I think Pizarro could get dropped. If he does, I could see Bryce Duke.
A possibility.
I could see Bryce Duke playing the 10. I could see Bryce Duke getting the chance to play the 10, Stefanelli on the left, and Ulloa in central midfield next to Jean Mota. I think that's a possibility.
It could be a possibility. He has the talent, but I don't think he has shown.
I'm not saying what I would do. I'm not saying what I would do. I'm just saying what Phil Neville and his staff might be considering.
Listen, that is the thing when you have that amount of players that can play with the ball. And that was one of the keys when we did that first podcast that we did predictions and we were talking about what Inter Miami would look like. We said you have players that touch the ball, and I even said it. You have Pizarro, you have Stefanelli, you have Bryce Duke, you have Corentin John, you have even the youngest players like Ascona, Cremaschi, and the players that are coming behind that are good with their feet. But unfortunately, it hasn't worked because, as we discussed in the past segment, possession without goals means nothing. So hopefully this lineup is, for me, crucial for Inter Miami for the season, especially as you said, and I had forgot to mention that they have a bye week, so it's important for them to get at least a point, and it will be massive for them to get a win before being off for their bye week.
Yeah,
so
it would do great. It would do great for morale.
Yeah,
because you go 2 weeks without a win.
Listen, then you don't get a free day, you don't get days off because you have to go training, and if you get the 3 points, then players can get some time off, depressurized, and the ambience also with
just the mood,
with
the mood, absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
You have belief going into the break as opposed to having that sinking feeling, knowing there's so much, exactly. Going into the break with that would not be good for the team locker room and just the overall vibe and the mood around the team. So we'll see what happens with Inter Miami on Saturday. They return at home where they normally have been strong, but they did lose the last game there to the Chicago Fire. So Andrea, let's take a break. We'll come back for our Q&A session and our final thoughts. We'll do that after this. Q&A time, and we've got a good few questions, but we can only get to a couple, especially if we're going to hit our 110 mark that we try to hit and we don't normally hit, but we're close this time. I think we can make it. So let's go with first question. Lloyd Halebrun. He says, after watching Martinez walk around the field for 90 minutes last Saturday night, my question is, why does this team have a fascination with washed up players? And I think he's alluding to,
I would say the league.
Well, I would say, between, I guess what he's alluding to is Martinez, Higuain, Matuidi. You couldn't call Pizarro washed up because he was he was in his prime. So I get the question. Look, I think Inter Miami, part of it is that they need stars, and they haven't been able to get.
No one young is willing to come.
Not for the money that they want. Not for the money that they've been able to pay, or they haven't been able to convince anyone yet. Who's in the peak. No Sebastian Giovincos. I think they've gone for some name recognition, some star power, but had to do it within their within their realistic reach, and this is what they've gotten. Now, you could argue if that's the right approach or not. I'm open to hearing that. I do think South Florida and Inter Miami need star power. Right now, there's no star on the team, and I think that's being reflected in more than one way. Not necessarily fan interest, at least to this early point in the season, but I could say this. I can say, look, post game on Saturday, and yes, it was a big day for South Florida sports with FAU and the University of Miami both in the Final Four of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. There was also the Miami Open going on, so it was a big weekend for sports. But there weren't that many. There were right, but there was, and the Heat won on Saturday, so it was a big day. But there was not a whole lot of media doing press post game. Yeah. As a matter of fact, post game press conference with Serhii Christoph, I was the only one that asked questions. I asked 3 questions. That was the whole interview post game with Serhii Christoph, because interest in the team is down, generally speaking. Like the YouTube numbers that we have, like for the interviews and stuff, that's gone down from where it was last year. I think the lack of star power is part of that.
You need a star in Miami. Listen, you need a star in Miami. That is the end of it. The Heat needed a star. They brought Jimmy Butler. The Miami Dolphins needed a star. They have Tua and other players.
Tua's not a star. Tua's not a star. Come on. I mean, I guess he's a star relatively speaking, but...
At least for interest. That when you talk about Tua, you get 1,000 retweets. or people insulting you. But with Inter Miami, that is what I was... remember, we talked about it in the first segment when I told you Josef doesn't feel that pressure. Because in Atlanta, he did. Because people were first supporting him, then they turn on him, and with that, you feel that. As a player, you feel that. And you feel that as an institution, as a coach. And unfortunately, here in South Florida, you need to bring a star player to get that from fans, because this town is like that. We like flashy people. We like to be bamboozled, even if they don't win a ring or whatever. We like having those type of players here.
We like style and substance. We need all of it here.
Exactly. And unfortunately, Inter Miami doesn't have that player in this moment. They thought maybe Josef Martinez could fill that void with the Venezuelan community. It has not, because also you can bring a name, you can bring a country, but you need to cater and be a little bit more intelligent. Like, for example, I have had this conversation with you, Franco. Why didn't they bring your compatriot, my favorite Peruvian player, even though if he's old, he is still, with 40 years old, scoring goals in competition in South America.
He scored tonight.
Exactly.
Paolo Guerrero scored tonight. I think
Guerrero.
he's too old to come to MLS.
Yeah, you can say he's too old, but that is a name that will bring you people here. Like Radamel Falcao Garcia is
right, but the point of the question is that why are they bringing up washed up players is the phrase. And again, I think that they're trying to bring in star power to draw butts and seats that they think can also perform, but it just hasn't panned out. They haven't hit a home run. Higuain finished
a lottery. Listen, this is a lottery.
Yeah, but you gotta raise your chances. You gotta raise your chances of making sure that the signing you bring on board is a good fit and it's going to work. Look, with Higuain, he finished his time in the Inter Miami Pink and Black on a high note, but if you take the balance of his 2.5 seasons, it's not a positive. It's not a positive. He didn't deliver, in my opinion, anywhere close to enough consistency.
What Higuain brought at least was attention. He didn't bring
exactly.
a title.
Now you don't have anything. Now you don't have that. All right. Speaking of star players, question from Joseph E. Or Joseph Jean is the which long-time listener of the show. He says, so with Messi more than likely not signing with Inter Miami in the summer of 2023, Al Hilal's ridiculous $400 million a season, like shocked emojis, what position should we look to fill immediately in the summer? Listen, I won't rule out Messi. Like, every day there's a new Messi report. I just read one before we started the pod about how Inter Miami is going to offer him ownership, which didn't even have any quotes or anything. It's just another rehash of something we've already heard. We've heard that before, that Messi's going to get the sweetheart deal offer and include ownership. That's definitely made their rounds. Those whispers have made their rounds. So it was a report, if I'm not mistaken, from The Independent, which is a reputable UK outlet. But it's like every day we hear something new. And it's going to be like that until the day he decides where he's going. Whether it's Inter Miami, PSG, Man City, Barcelona, Al Hilal, whatever. Whatever you want, we're going to hear something new about Messi. I wouldn't rule it out. But what position, to answer your question, would I look to sign if Messi's not coming? Me personally, I go for an attacking midfielder. That's what I would do. Andrea, quickly, what position?
Yes, at 10.
At 10. Okay. All right. Last one. We'll do one more. And it's from Elder Bar. And he says, why am I always late to these? He tweeted it an hour ago. Pizarro is a key player at this point, but that's not saying much. League is constantly double teaming that dude. And if he comes down, there's no one to receive it. Is Inter Miami really that bad? So, I think Pizarro has had his positives as well as his negatives. He definitely puts in the effort. He's definitely hustling and trying to make things happen. So you can't question the attitude and effort. But to answer your question, Inter Miami that bad? Right now, yes, they are that bad. Right now. Andrea?
I wanted to say that Elder has seen what I was telling you. Pizarro gets double team, triple team. The people have figured out what Phil is doing. So in this moment, yes, they are bad. They have a possibility to get better when Campana is back, if we see some changes, but in this moment, they are bad. I'm not going to lie. We're not going to lie to our listeners here.
Charlie Weiss actually had a similar question. He goes, question. Has anyone told Pizarro he's allowed to pass the ball? The man is always trying to get past 2-3 defenders and not usually succeeding. So, again.
Listen, and that is what you were saying, that people criticize Pizarro, and I agree with that. He needs to get the ball off his feet quicker.
It's going downhill for Pizarro when Andrea is starting to criticize him because she's defended him staunchly for the first 6 weeks of the season. So if Andrea started to change her tune and sing a different tune, well, then it's either the sunburn is really, really intense or, it's not been that great from Pizarro. We'll do one more. I mean, we've already answered it, but I don't believe I've seen a question from this person before. So I think it's a first-time question. Maybe long-time listener, first-time question asker. It's from Axel Benjamin. He says, any update on Campana? Like we mentioned before, I think he will be in uniform on Saturday, most likely off the bench. So that does it for the Q&A this week. Ran through it really quickly. Hit a whole bunch of the questions. We appreciate that. Thank you guys again. If we didn't call on your question, stick with it. We'll get to you. We just got to make the rounds to try to keep the show within reasonable timing. All right, Andrea, you were going to say something. Is it your final thought? Are you ready for your final thought?
No, I was going to say if someone gets mad because of what I said in this podcast, Phil, Pizarro, Joseph, I'm going to blame it on the sunburn that I have.
Okay,
but my final thought is the U.S. Open Cup is coming up also. We're going to see who Inter Miami rival is, but my final thought is it's really unfortunate what football, soccer in this country is living with the rights issue, because we have seen many complaints about Apple, the cost and all of that. But now we're seeing that the national team is also going to a streaming service, making games unavailable for the national team, men and women. They are not now only available in English in HBO Max. And the U.S. Open Cup, the best tournament, the oldest tournament in this country, is only available in Bleacher Report and not all the matches. I think U.S. Soccer needs to be a little bit more intelligent and sell their product better, to bring more fans, to bring more profit, and to keep their tournaments growing, and they are going backwards. People cannot watch the U.S. Open Cup anymore. Some games are only available in streaming or in a Facebook Live or whatever, and that is not growing the game, growing your brand, and growing your tournament. And putting the national team also on a streaming platform is not going to help the game grow, especially when you are bringing the most important tournament in the world to this country. You need to be a little bit more intelligent. So that is my final thought, and hopefully that gets better.
I think you can still see some of the games on TV in Spanish, though. Which, I mean, if we're being honest, if we're being honest,
Spanish Telemundo,
if we're being honest, like watching football and soccer, generally speaking, in Spanish is better than English. I mean, I'm fluent in both, and I can tell you, and I was born in the United States, but I can tell you, at least from my standpoint or my vantage point, my stance, it's much better listening to it in Spanish. And I think there's plenty of English-speaking American people, only English-speaking, that will tell you the same thing. They're like, I've seen plenty of people be like, I don't even understand what they're saying in Spanish, but I just enjoy listening to it in Spanish. So again, but that's just...
And that is a good tip that you gave, because it's true. I forgot to say that if you want to watch them in Spanish, you can do it on open TV, on national TV in Telemundo. So
come on, Andrea, you gotta give your well-rounded final thoughts. I will end the show on a slightly positive, I guess. It's a positive. It's definitely not a negative. People asked, Inter Miami listened. For the last 3 seasons, Inter Miami has sold their jerseys, their apparel, etc., etc. But they have not sold their shorts, despite their very cool color scheme of black and pink. But that has changed this year. You can now find Inter Miami's La Noche shorts available for sale. They run $60. You can find them on the MLS store, the Inter Miami store. They're there in all sizes. I've been asking for a few years now. I've asked people within the club, why don't they sell the shorts? I think they would sell. I think they would do well. I was told it was like a league and Adidas thing, that they weren't releasing the shorts because whatever. I guess maybe Adidas didn't think that they would sell. Whatever. But somehow it's happened. And I guess maybe this is just like a trial. I don't know if it's a trial or if it's going to be something we see every year. But if it is a trial, then the numbers have to reflect well on the shorts being sold. So if you want a pair of those nice black and pinks that Inter Miami has debuted this year, you can get yourself a pair. I don't work for MLS store. I don't work for Inter Miami store. I make no commission off of this. I'm just a soccer nerd, a Futbol fanatic. I like Inter Miami's color scheme. I imagine plenty of other people listening to the pod do as well. And they would probably want that for their collection to either use for when they go play pickup in Doral, or pickup in Broward, or if they go for a run, or if they're just lounging around the house. I think that's a good item to add to the collection. And, Inter Miami fans asked, Inter Miami listened. So that does it for this week's show. We will leave it there. We'll be back next week before Inter Miami goes on break just to analyze that match. So it'll probably be a much shorter pod next week because we won't have a game to preview, but we'll be back next week to recap, analyze, and look into the match that was against FC Dallas. So for Andrea, Yanez, I am Franco Panizo. You have been listening to Miami Total Football Radio, and we'll talk to you guys again